My name is Ryan Mitchell, 32 years old, and until recently, I thought I knew what family meant. As a successful software developer who opened my home to my struggling sister and her husband, I never expected betrayal would come gift-wrapped in Christmas plans. Being excluded from our family trip to Colorado was just the beginning. I never thought my own family would betray me, then have the audacity to call me selfish when I finally stood up for myself. Before I dive into this painful story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And hit that like and subscribe button if family drama gets your attention. Growing up in Portland, my family was everything to me. Our home wasn't fancy, but it was filled with laughter, game nights, and traditions that I cherished. My parents, Robert and Linda Mitchell, worked hard to give us a good life, dad as an accountant and mom as an elementary school teacher. My sister Jessica is 2 years younger than me, and we were close as kids despite the usual sibling rivalries. We built snow forts together, defended each other at school, and shared secrets under blanket tents with flashlights. College was where our paths started to diverge. I threw myself into computer science, pulling all-nighters to master coding while working part-time jobs to minimize student loans. Those years were brutal but worth it. I graduated with honors and landed an entry-level position at TechVision, a growing software company. The starting salary wasn't impressive, but I lived frugally in a tiny studio apartment, brought lunch from home every day, and focused on building my skills. The hard work paid off faster than I expected. By 27, I'd been promoted 3 times and was leading my own development team. My salary had more than doubled, and I was finally able to start saving for a house. Last year, at 31, I closed on my dream home, a beautiful 4-bedroom house with panoramic mountain views, an open-concept living area, and a backyard perfect for summer barbecues. The mortgage was substantial, but my career trajectory made it manageable. I was proud of what I'd accomplished through dedication and persistence. Jessica took a different path. She majored in communications but struggled to find direction after graduation. She bounced between retail jobs and administrative positions, never staying anywhere longer than a year. 4 years ago, she met Mark at a friend's wedding. He was charming and ambitious, at least in conversation. They married after just 8 months together. Mark's employment history was even more scattered than Jessica's. He tried sales, marketing, real estate, and most recently, was exploring opportunities in digital content creation. In practice, this meant occasionally posting on a YouTube channel with fewer than 50 subscribers while spending hours playing video games. 8 months ago, Jessica called me in tears. Their landlord was selling their apartment building, and they needed a place to stay. Just for a few weeks, until they found something new. I had just moved into my house and had plenty of space, so I offered them the guest room. Weeks turned into months, with vague promises about house hunting and saving for a deposit. I tried to be the supportive brother. I charged them minimal rent, just $300 monthly, when similar rooms in our area went for at least $1,000. I gave them the master bedroom with the ensuite bathroom while I took the smaller room. I cooked dinner most nights since I enjoyed it, and was usually home first. Jessica occasionally helped with grocery shopping, and Mark existed in the space. My parents seemed pleased with this arrangement. "It's so wonderful you're helping your sister," Mom would say during our weekly calls. "Families should stick together." Dad would add comments about how generous I was, though I noticed they never offered to host Jessica and Mark themselves, despite having a perfectly good guest room in their house. The annual Mitchell family Christmas trip had been a tradition for the past 6 years. We'd rent a cabin somewhere picturesque, Lake Tahoe, Yellowstone, the Oregon coast, and spend a week reconnecting, playing board games, hiking, and enjoying festive meals together. This year, the destination was Aspen, Colorado, and I was particularly excited. I'd been working 60-hour weeks on a major project launch and desperately needed the break. Plus, I'd never been to Aspen and was looking forward to trying snowboarding for the first time. Jessica and Mark talked constantly about the trip too. "I can't wait to hit those slopes," Mark would say. Though to my knowledge he'd never skied before. Jessica bought new thermal underwear and spent hours researching the best hot chocolate spots in Aspen. Their enthusiasm only amplified my own excitement. Our living situation wasn't perfect. Jessica left wet towels on the bathroom floor, Mark's snack wrappers appeared in couch cushions. And neither seemed to understand how to properly load a dishwasher. But these were minor irritations. We were family, and family sticks together. At least, that's what I believed at the time. As November rolled into December, I started asking about specific travel dates for the Aspen trip so I could request time off work. Jessica always changed the subject or gave vague answers. "Mom's still figuring out the details." Or, "We'll know soon." I thought nothing of it. Planning group travel can be complicated, and I trusted that I'd be looped in when arrangements were finalized. Looking back, there were signs I missed. Hushed phone conversations that ended when I entered the room. Jessica and Mark exchanging meaningful glances when I mentioned Christmas. Mom being uncharacteristically vague during our calls. But I was wrapped up in work, putting final touches on a project that would potentially lead to another promotion. I didn't see the betrayal coming until it hit me square in the face. 3 weeks before Christmas, I came home early from work. Exhausted but pleased after finally submitting the project that had consumed my life for months. As I approached the front door, I heard Jessica's animated voice through the partially open window. She was on the phone, laughing about something. "I know, it's going to be amazing," she was saying. "The cabin Mom and Dad found has a hot tub on the deck overlooking the mountains. And the master bedroom has this enormous shower with multiple jets." I smiled to myself, excited to hear more details about our upcoming trip. I quietly entered, not wanting to interrupt her call. Planning to ask for specifics afterward. "Mark is so excited about the ski instructor they booked," Jessica continued. "And Dad already reserved our spots for the Christmas Eve dinner at that fancy restaurant in Aspen Village." I paused in the hallway, frowning slightly. This was the first I'd heard of ski lessons or restaurant reservations. Usually, we planned these activities together as a family. "The flight leaves on the 20th at 10 a.m., Jessica said. "Mom sent the itinerary yesterday. I can't believe it's only 2 weeks away." My confusion deepened. No one had sent me an itinerary. I checked my phone to see if I'd somehow missed an email. But there was nothing in my inbox about travel plans. Jessica's voice dropped slightly. "No, it'll be perfect with just the 6 of us. Much more relaxing this way." 6 people? That didn't make sense. Our family trips included my parents, Jessica, Mark, and me. That was 5 people. Who was the 6th? I heard Jessica say goodbye and decided to casually ask about the trip. I walked into the living room where she was curled up on my leather sofa, the one I'd saved for months to buy. "Hey Jess. That sounded like trip planning. Did Mom finally send the details?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Jessica's smile faltered. She quickly put her phone face down on the coffee table. "Oh, hey Ryan. Didn't hear you come in. How was work?" "Fine. Just finished the big project. So about the Aspen trip, I need to request days off. When exactly are we leaving?" Jessica suddenly became very interested in a loose thread on her sweater. "Oh, about that." "About what?" I prompted when she didn't continue. She sighed dramatically. "Look, Ryan, I wasn't sure how to tell you this, but the trip this year is going to be a little different." A knot formed in my stomach. Different how? Well, Mom and Dad decided it should be more of an adults-only thing this year. You know. Just for couples. I stared at her, perplexed. "I'm 32, Jess. Pretty sure I qualify as an adult." She flushed slightly. "That's not what I meant. It's more like for people in relationships." Mom thought it would be nice to have a couples retreat kind of vibe. The knot in my stomach tightened. So I'm being excluded because I'm single? Don't think of it as being excluded, Jessica said quickly. It's just a different kind of trip this year. You probably wouldn't enjoy it anyway, all the romantic dinners and couples massages. I sat down heavily on the armchair across from her. I don't remember family Christmas being about couples activities before. We've always just hung out, played games, enjoyed the scenery. Jessica shrugged. Things change. Besides, you're always working. We figured you probably couldn't get the time off anyway. I've never missed a family Christmas trip, I said quietly. Not once in 6 years. There's always next year, Jessica offered, not quite meeting my eyes. Anyway, I need to start dinner. Mark will be back from his networking event soon. Mark's networking events typically meant playing video games at his friend's apartment, but I didn't have the energy to point that out. I was still processing the fact that I'd been cut out of a tradition that meant the world to me. That evening, I retreated to my room earlier than usual, claiming fatigue from work. In reality, I needed space to sort through my feelings. The exclusion stung deeply, but I tried to be understanding. Perhaps my parents really did want a different type of vacation this year. Maybe it wasn't personal. Then I made the mistake of checking Instagram before bed. Megan, Jessica's best friend since college, had posted a story showing off new ski gear with the caption, "Can't wait for Aspen with my favorite people. At Jessica Mitchell at Mark Wilson #Christmas vacation." I frowned and clicked through to Jessica's profile, where I found a recent post I'd somehow missed. A selfie of her and Mark with the caption, "Counting down to our Colorado Christmas. So excited to hit the slopes with at Megan Taylor and at Brandon Clark." The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't about couples or adults-only activities. Jessica and Mark had invited their friends to take my place on the family trip. I barely slept that night, cycling through confusion, hurt, and anger. By morning, I decided to get answers directly from my parents. I waited until I knew my dad would be at lunch and called my mother. "Mitchell residence." Mom answered on the third ring, her voice cheerful. "Hi, Mom, it's Ryan." "Ryan? How are you, sweetheart? How's the big project going?" "Just finished it yesterday," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Listen, Mom, I wanted to ask you about the Christmas trip." There was a pause, then a soft sigh. "Oh, Jessica mentioned she talked to you about that. She said something about it being a couples retreat this year?" "Well, yes, we thought it might be nice to try something different," Mom replied, her tone overly bright. "Your father and I are celebrating our 35th anniversary around that time, you know." "Your anniversary is in April, Mom." Another pause. "Well, it's a pre-anniversary celebration." "Mom," I said firmly, "what's really going on? I saw on Instagram that Jessica invited Megan and her boyfriend. If it's a couples-only trip, why are her friends coming?" The line went quiet for so long I thought we might have disconnected. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice smaller. "I didn't know how to tell you, Ryan. It wasn't my idea." "What wasn't your idea?" Jessica thought. She suggested that maybe this year you might sit this one out. The bluntness of it, after all the evasion, left me momentarily speechless. Mom rushed to fill the silence. She had a few concerns. "She said you make Mark feel bad about his career? Not intentionally, of course, but just by being so successful." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I make Mark feel bad? By existing? Mom, I've never once commented on his job situation." "I know, dear, but Jessica says he feels intimidated. And then there's the room situation. The cabin only has 3 bedrooms, and Jessica wanted to invite Megan and Brandon. She said you probably wouldn't want to come anyway since you're always working." My free hand clenched into a fist. "I've never missed a family Christmas, Mom. Not once." "I know, and I told Jessica that, but she was very insistent." She said you wouldn't mind, that you'd understand. And you believed her? Without even asking me? Mom's voice turned defensive. Jessica really needed this vacation, Ryan. She's been under a lot of stress lately. Stress from what? I asked incredulously. She doesn't have a job. She lives in my house practically rent-free. What exactly is stressing her out? That's not fair. Jessica and Mark are trying to get on their feet. They're saving for a house. A bitter laugh escaped me. They're saving for a house while spending Christmas in Aspen? Do you have any idea how expensive that is? Your father and I are covering most of the trip costs. Mom admitted. It's our gift to them. When were you planning to tell me about all this? The trip is in 2 weeks. Another uncomfortable pause. Jessica said she'd handle it. She thought it would be better coming from her, since you two live together. And when exactly did you all make these plans without me? About 2 months ago, Mom said quietly. 2 months. They'd been planning this for 2 months behind my back. While living in my house. Eating the food I bought. Sleeping in my master bedroom. I have to go, Mom, I said, my voice tight. Ryan, please try to understand. Jessica just needed this vacation. Yeah, you said that already. I took a deep breath. When do you leave? The day after tomorrow. Early flight. That soon. The betrayal felt even sharper knowing they'd kept this from me until the last possible moment. I hope you all have a wonderful time, I said, not bothering to hide the hurt in my voice. Ryan, Mom began, but I had already ended the call. I sat at my desk, staring blankly at my computer screen, trying to process everything. The family I'd trusted, the sister I'd supported, had deliberately excluded me from our most cherished tradition. Not because of any couples retreat nonsense, but because Jessica wanted my spot for her friends. And my parents had gone along with it. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Please don't be upset. We can plan something special with just you when we get back. An afterthought? That's what I'd become to my own family. The reliable brother who could be counted on for housing and financial support but easily discarded when convenient. I set my phone aside without responding and tried to focus on work. But my mind kept replaying the conversation with Mom. The casual ways she'd admitted to planning behind my back for months. The flimsy justifications. The assumption that I'd just accept being pushed aside. By the time I heard Jessica and Mark returning home that evening, a cold resolve had settled in my chest. I needed to see just how deep this betrayal went. I left work early the next day, arriving home around 3 in the afternoon. Jessica's car was in the driveway. Which surprised me. She usually went shopping or to coffee with friends on weekdays. As I approached the front door, I could hear Jessica and Mark talking animatedly inside. Do you think we should take the North Face jackets or the Columbia ones? Jessica was asking. Definitely North Face. They're more high-end. Brandon will be wearing Arc'teryx. And I don't want to look cheap, Mark replied. I entered quietly, following their voices to the guest bedroom, my former master suite. The door was open, and I stood in the hallway watching them for a moment, unnoticed. Jessica was carefully folding designer sweaters into an expensive hard-shell suitcase I'd never seen before. Mark was organizing what appeared to be brand new ski accessories, gloves, goggles, and a helmet with tags still attached. On the bed lay 2 pristine North Face jackets, several pairs of snow pants, and thermal base layers that still had price tags dangling. Doing some last-minute packing? I asked, making them both jump. Jessica recovered quickly. Ryan! You're home early. Yes. Just getting organized for tomorrow. I leaned against the doorframe, eyeing their expensive new gear. That's quite a lot of new stuff for people who are supposedly saving for a house. Jessica and Mark exchanged glances. We got most of it on sale, Jessica said dismissively. Black Friday deals. Really? Because those tags don't look like sale prices to me. I stepped closer. pointing to a $300 price tag on one of the jackets. Mark shifted uncomfortably. It's important to have proper gear for winter sports. Safety first and all that. Of course, I agreed. It means I'm curious how you're affording all this while paying me rent and supposedly saving for a house. That's easily $3,000 worth of gear I'm looking at. Jessica's expression hardened. We've been saving our house fund for this trip. We deserved a nice vacation after the year we've had. The year you've had, I repeated slowly. Living rent-free in my house, with no jobs, deserves a luxury ski vacation? We pay you rent, Jessica protested. $300 a month for a master bedroom in a house where comparable rooms rent for over $1,000. That's practically free. Mark stepped forward, his face flushing. We don't need to justify our spending to you. What we do with our money is our business. Something in his defensive tone triggered a suspicion. I walked over to the dresser where I'd noticed my credit card statement the previous day. I'd been too distracted by the trip revelation to review it carefully. But now I pulled it from the envelope and scanned the recent charges. Interesting, I said, looking up at them. There seem to be quite a few charges I don't recognize. Coffee shops I've never been to. Gas stations when my car was in the garage. Online orders from stores I don't use. Jessica's face paled slightly. You probably just forgot. I don't think so. I flipped the statement around to show them. Because these charges were made while I was at a conference in Seattle last month. Unless my credit card developed legs and traveled home without me. Someone else was using it. Mark crossed his arms. It was just a few small purchases. We were going to pay you back. Were you? When exactly? Before or after your luxury vacation? Jessica rolled her eyes dramatically. You're being ridiculous. It's not like you can't afford it. You make six figures while Mark has been struggling to find work that values his talents. His talents? I repeated flatly. Like using my credit card without permission? You owe us anyway. Mark burst out. Do you have any idea how boring it is listening to your endless work stories? How annoying it is watching you parade your success around? I stared at him, genuinely shocked. Parade my success? By working hard and paying for the roof over your head. You think you're so much better than everyone. Jessica jumped in. Perfect Ryan who does everything right. You have no idea how hard it is for normal people. Normal people pay their own bills, Jess. They don't steal from family members who are helping them. We borrowed your card a few times. Stop being so dramatic. I shook my head, feeling something fundamental shifting inside me. When exactly were you planning to move out? You said it would be a few weeks. It's been 8 months. Jessica and Mark exchanged another look, this one tinged with something like guilt. We're still getting our finances in order, Jessica said vaguely. When? I pressed. Jessica sighed dramatically. I don't know, Ryan. Maybe next summer? We're not in a rush. The arrangement is working fine. Working fine for whom? I asked quietly. You live in my house. Use my utilities, eat my food, apparently use my credit card, and then exclude me from family Christmas while inviting your friends instead. How exactly is this working fine? You're being too sensitive, Jessica said, turning back to her packing. It's just one Christmas trip. Get over it. And the credit card charges? Should I just get over those too? Mark stepped toward me, his expression hardening. Look, we said we'd pay you back eventually. Stop making such a big deal about everything. This is why we didn't want you on the trip. You always have to make everything about you. I looked from Mark's hostile face to Jessica's dismissive one and realized something important. They had no respect for me. None whatsoever. I wasn't a brother or brother-in-law to them. I was a convenience, an ATM, a free place to stay with utilities included. I think we need to talk about your living situation when you get back from Aspen, I said quietly. Jessica finally looked up, alarm flashing across her face. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm reconsidering our arrangement. You can't kick us out, Jessica said, her voice rising. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie and manipulate. Family doesn't exclude people from traditions that matter to them. You're overreacting, Mark insisted. It's a vacation and a few dollars on a credit card. Stop being so materialistic. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. I looked at the thousands of dollars of brand new ski gear spread across my former bedroom and wondered how I'd been so blind. We'll discuss this when you get back, I repeated, turning to leave. Have a great time in Aspen. Ryan, wait, Jessica called, but I was already walking away, a plan forming in my mind. I woke early the next morning to the sounds of suitcases being dragged down the hallway and excited chatter. From my bedroom window, I watched as Jessica and Mark loaded their expensive luggage into an Uber. Jessica was wearing a new cream-colored cashmere sweater I'd never seen before. And Mark had on what looked like brand new Timberland boots. Neither of them knocked on my door to say goodbye. As the car pulled away, I felt a strange mixture of hurt and relief. The house would be peaceful for a week. No dirty dishes left in the sink. No loud TV at midnight. No walking on eggshells in my own home. I'd taken a personal day from work, telling my boss I needed time to deal with family matters. After the Uber disappeared from view, I made coffee and sat at my kitchen island, trying to process everything that had happened. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Water my plants while we're gone. The jade plant needs water every 3 days. Also, Duke needs his special diet cat food, the expensive one in the blue bag. Thanks. Duke was their overweight tabby who had destroyed my living room curtains within a week of their arrival. The special diet food was prescription cat food that I'd been paying for because Jessica claimed they couldn't afford it. 20 minutes later, another text arrived. Can you transfer $200 for the dog sitter? Venmo at pause and play. We forgot to pay before leaving. I stared at the message in confusion. Dog sitter? They didn't have a dog. What dog would need sitting? As I pondered this new mystery, I noticed Jessica's laptop still open on the coffee table. She was usually meticulous about closing it, and I suspected she'd left in such a hurry she'd forgotten. I shouldn't look, I told myself. It would be an invasion of privacy. Then I remembered the unauthorized charges on my credit card. The lies about the Christmas trip. The manipulation. I sat down in front of the laptop. The screen had gone dark, but when I moved the mouse, it lit up immediately. No password required. Jessica's email was open, showing dozens of unread messages. One subject line caught my eye. Job opportunity follow-up. I clicked it open. It was from Jessica to a hiring manager. Thank you for your interest. But I've decided to pursue other opportunities at this time. My current living situation allows me the freedom to be selective about my next career move. I frowned and clicked on her sent items folder, finding several similar emails, all turning down job interviews or offers. So much for actively job hunting. Another email thread with the subject, Ryan's situation, drew my attention. It was between Jessica and my cousin Amanda. Amanda. How's it going living with your brother? Is he driving you crazy yet? Jessica. OMG, yes. He's so controlling about the house. Everything has to be his way. Mark and I are walking on eggshells. Amanda. That sucks. Can you move out? Jessica. Why would we? We have the master bedroom in a luxury house and barely pay anything. Ryan's making 6 figures and has no life. He can subsidize us for a while longer, lol. Amanda. Isn't he suspicious? Jessica. He's clueless. Too busy with his precious career. Anyway, he's kind of unstable lately, working too much, seems depressed. We're doing him a favor by staying, giving him some company. My hands shook as I clicked through more emails, finding exchanges where Jessica mocked my generosity to friends, complained about having to occasionally clean up after herself. and strategized ways to extend their stay indefinitely. Then I found an email with an attachment labeled Lease Application, the Lexington Apartments. It was dated just 2 weeks after they'd moved in with me. The application was fully completed but never submitted. They'd been capable of finding their own place all along but had chosen to take advantage of my hospitality instead. In Jessica's Google Drive, I found a folder titled House Fund. Inside was a spreadsheet tracking their savings not for a house deposit as they'd claimed, but for vacations, designer clothes, and electronics. They'd saved over $15,000 while living with me, all while claiming they couldn't afford more than $300 in rent. The final blow came when I discovered a series of texts Jessica had synced to her laptop. In them, she and Mark discussed the Christmas trip. Jessica: Mom said Ryan seemed upset about not being invited. Mark: Who cares? He'll get over it. We need this break from him. Jessica: I told her he works too much to come anyway. She bought it. Mark: Your parents are so easy to manipulate. Just mention how stressed you are, and they jump to help. Jessica: I know. Dad already agreed to pay for the ski lessons and equipment rentals. Mark: Sweet. Hey, do you think Ryan would notice if we used his Amazon account for some last-minute stuff? We could say it was a mistake. Jessica: Probably not. He never checks his statements carefully. Go for it. I closed the laptop, feeling physically ill. The depth of their deception was staggering. They hadn't just taken advantage of my generosity, they'd actively plotted against me. Manipulated my parents, stolen from me, and mocked me behind my back, all while living under my roof. Something broke inside me at that moment. The last threads of familial obligation snapped. This wasn't family. This was parasitic. And it was time to cut it out of my life. I didn't waste any time. Within an hour of discovering the extent of Jessica and Mark's deception, I was on the phone with a locksmith. He arrived by noon, and by 1 o'clock, all the locks on my house had been changed. I paid extra for smart locks that could be controlled remotely via app, ensuring I'd know if anyone tried to enter while I was away. Next, I called a storage facility nearby and rented a medium-sized unit for 1 month. The cost was significant, $400, but worth every penny for what I was about to do. With methodical precision, I began packing up Jessica and Mark's belongings. I was careful and respectful, wrapping fragile items in bubble wrap, folding clothes neatly, and organizing everything in labeled boxes. This wasn't about revenge or destruction. It was about reclaiming my space and my dignity. It took me 6 hours to pack everything. Their clothing filled 8 large boxes. Electronics and personal items took another 4. Duke the cat watched lazily from the windowsill as I worked, occasionally meowing in what seemed like approval. I hired a moving service for the next morning to transport everything to the storage unit. As I sealed the last box, I felt lighter than I had in months, despite the physical exertion. My house was mine again. The master bedroom, which still held the faint scent of Jessica's overwhelming perfume, would soon be my sanctuary once more. That evening, I took additional steps to protect myself. I canceled the credit card Jessica and Mark had been using and requested a new one. I changed all my passwords, email, social media, streaming services. Everything. I documented the unauthorized charges and filed a dispute with my credit card company. I also took photos of the house in its current state to prove there was no damage or destruction of property. Whatever Jessica and Mark might claim later, I wanted evidence that I had acted reasonably and responsibly. The next day, the movers arrived promptly at 9. Within 2 hours, all traces of Jessica and Mark had been removed from my home except for Duke, who I couldn't bring myself to send to a shelter. The cat was innocent in all this, and besides, he'd grown on me despite the curtain incident. At the storage facility, I paid for the first month in full and arranged for Jessica to receive the access code and location details. Then I drove home, exhausted but resolved. By late afternoon, I'd moved my things back into the master bedroom. I ordered new bedding to replace the sheets Jessica and Mark had used. Sage smudged the entire house, something my new age colleagues swore would clear negative energy, and treated myself to a steak dinner delivery from my favorite restaurant. As I ate dinner in peaceful silence, I composed a brief text to Jessica. Your belongings are at secure storage on Parkway Drive, Unit 247. Access code 8532. First month is paid. Duke is safe with me unless you make other arrangements for him. Then I blocked her number. I blocked my parents' numbers too, and Mark's, and set my social media accounts to private. I took a week off work, turned off my phone, and prepared for the inevitable fallout. It came sooner than I expected. Though I'd blocked their numbers, Jessica, Mark, and my parents still had email access to me, and my inbox exploded within hours of them discovering what I'd done. From Jessica. What the hell, Ryan? We just got home from the airport and can't get in. Where is our stuff? Where's Duke? This is illegal. From Mark. You've gone too far this time. We're getting a lawyer. Hope you're ready for a lawsuit, asshole. From Mom. Ryan Mitchell, I am shocked and appalled by your behavior. Call me immediately. Your sister is in tears. From Dad. Son. Whatever issues you're having with your sister, this is not the way to handle it. Be an adult and talk to us. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I forwarded the emails from Jessica to my cousin Amanda and others where she disparaged me to my parents, along with screenshots of the unauthorized credit card charges. I attached a brief note. This is why I did what I did. I will not be taken advantage of any longer. The next wave of emails was more subdued. Mom expressed shock at Jessica's messages but still insisted I should have handled things differently. Dad acknowledged the credit card usage was concerning, but thought I'd overreacted. Jessica switched tactics, claiming she'd been joking in those emails and that I was mentally unstable for taking them seriously. I remained silent. By day 3, my extended family had gotten involved. Some cousins messaged their support, having experienced Jessica's manipulative behavior themselves. Others called me selfish and cruel. My Aunt Beverly, Mom's sister, wrote a particularly scathing email about how I was tearing the family apart at Christmas. I didn't respond to any of them either. Christmas Day arrived. I spent it alone but not lonely. I made myself a nice breakfast, opened the few gifts I bought myself, and video chatted with friends who were also having non-traditional holidays. In the evening, I took Duke for a walk in his new harness. Yes, I'd become the guy who walks his cat, and enjoyed the Christmas lights in my neighborhood. My phone, which I'd turned back on just for the day, buzzed constantly with messages and calls from family members. I ignored them all. This boundary was long overdue, and I was committed to maintaining it. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed quietly. I used the time to redecorate my house, erasing the last traces of Jessica and Mark's presence. I donated the guest room furniture they'd been using and converted the space into a home office. I rearranged the living room, installed new curtains to replace the ones Duke had shredded, and finally hung the artwork I'd been meaning to display for months. When I returned to work after the new year, I felt renewed. My colleagues commented on my improved mood and energy. My boss was impressed with the fresh ideas I brought to our first meeting of the year. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again, not the doormat Jessica and Mark had turned me into. The messages from my family continued but decreased in frequency and hostility. Mom's texts shifted from demands to see me to tentative questions about my well-being. Dad's emails became less accusatory and more reflective. Jessica's communication vacillated between rage and manipulation, with occasional attempts at guilt-tripping. I maintained my silence. Not out of spite but as an act of self-preservation. I needed time and space to process everything, to rebuild my sense of self and establish healthier boundaries. 3 weeks after Christmas, a letter arrived in my mailbox, actual physical mail, handwritten on stationery. It was from Jessica. Dear Ryan, it began. I've started this letter a dozen times, and I still don't know exactly what to say. Mark and I found an apartment. It's not as nice as your place, obviously, but it's ours. We moved Duke there too. I'm not going to pretend what we did was okay. It wasn't. We took advantage of you, lied to you, and betrayed your trust. There's no excuse for that. I could blame it on financial stress or jealousy of your success or a million other things, but the truth is, we were selfish and entitled. The Christmas trip was the worst part. We manipulated Mom and Dad into excluding you because we wanted to bring our friends instead. It was cruel, and I'm deeply ashamed. I don't expect you to forgive me anytime soon, or maybe ever. But I wanted you to know that I recognize how terribly we treated you, and I'm truly sorry. Love always, Jessica. I read the letter 3 times, searching for hidden manipulation or guilt trips, but found none. It seemed genuinely remorseful. I didn't respond immediately, still needing time to process my feelings. A few days later, my parents reached out separately, asking to meet for coffee at a neutral location. After some consideration, I agreed. The coffee shop was busy when I arrived, the Sunday morning crowd filling nearly every table. I spotted my parents in a corner booth, both looking older and more tired than I remembered. Mom half rose when she saw me, uncertainty written across her face. Dad nodded solemnly. His usual confidence noticeably dimmed. Ryan, Mom said as I slid into the booth across from them. Thank you for coming. I nodded but didn't immediately speak. The waitress came by, and I ordered a black coffee, needing the simplicity and clarity of its bitter warmth. We owe you an apology, Dad began once the waitress left. A significant one. We had no idea what Jessica and Mark were doing, Mom added quickly. The credit card charges, the things she was saying about you to others, the way they were taking advantage. But you knew about the Christmas trip, I said quietly. You knew they wanted to exclude me and bring their friends instead. And you went along with it. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We did. And there's no excuse for that. None whatsoever. We've enabled Jessica for years, Dad admitted, surprising me with his frankness. Whenever she's in trouble, we bail her out. Whenever she wants something, we find a way to give it to her. We thought we were being supportive parents, but we were just teaching her that manipulation works. It wasn't fair to you, Mom said. It never has been. You've always been the responsible one, the one we didn't have to worry about. So we took you for granted. I sipped my coffee, letting their words sink in. Do you know what hurt the most? I finally asked. It wasn't the exclusion from the trip, though that was painful. It wasn't even the credit card charges or the lies. It was the realization that in my own family, my feelings and boundaries weren't considered important. That I was valuable for what I could provide, not for who I am. Mom reached across the table, tentatively touching my hand. We love you for who you are, Ryan. We've just done a terrible job of showing it. We're in family therapy now, Dad said. Jessica too, separately. This situation forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about our family dynamics. I raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. My father had always scoffed at therapy, calling it paying someone to listen to you complain. It's helping, he continued, seeming to read my skepticism. We're learning about boundaries and enabling behaviors. Your mother and I are recognizing patterns we never saw before. What about Jessica and Mark? I asked. They found an apartment, as Jessica probably told you in her letter, Mom said. Mark is actually working now, a real job at that marketing firm downtown. Jessica has interviews lined up. We told them we won't be providing financial support anymore, Dad added. They need to stand on their own feet. I nodded slowly, cautiously optimistic but still wary. I need you both to understand something. I love you, but what happened damaged my trust deeply. Rebuilding it will take time, and I need you to respect that. Of course, Mom said quickly. That means respecting my boundaries, I continued. No more pressuring me to forgive and forget for the sake of family harmony. No more expecting me to set myself on fire to keep others warm. Dad nodded solemnly. We understand. And we'll do better. Ryan. Not just with words but with actions. We talked for another hour, more openly and honestly than we had in years. There were difficult moments and painful acknowledgments, but also genuine connection. When we finally parted, it was with tentative hugs and promises to meet again the following weekend. Over the next 6 months, our family dynamics shifted significantly. My parents maintained their commitment to therapy and established healthier boundaries with Jessica. They respected my need for space and never pressured me to interact with Jessica and Mark before I was ready. Jessica and I eventually met for lunch, just the two of us. The conversation was awkward at first, laden with the weight of past hurts, but gradually became more genuine. She had started a job at a marketing firm and seemed more grounded than I'd seen her in years. She didn't ask to move back in or borrow money, which was progress in itself. Mark and I maintained polite distance. He sent a formal apology letter that seemed sincere enough, but I had no desire to rebuild a close relationship with him. Some bridges once burned are better left as ashes. Duke the cat stayed with me by mutual agreement. He bonded with me during those weeks alone, and Jessica admitted their new apartment didn't allow pets anyway. His presence was a constant reminder of that difficult time, but also of my growth and strengthened boundaries. As spring turned to summer, I started dating someone, Alicia, a software engineer I met at an industry conference. She was brilliant, kind, and respected boundaries in a way that made me realize how starved I'd been for healthy relationships. When I finally told her the full story of Jessica and Mark, she didn't dismiss my feelings or tell me to forgive for the sake of family peace. Instead, she validated my experience and supported my ongoing journey toward healthier relationships. My home became truly mine again. I hosted dinner parties with friends who cleaned up after themselves and contributed food and wine. I converted the second bedroom into a proper guest room that actually hosted guests temporarily rather than permanent residents. I created a home office in the third bedroom where I occasionally worked on freelance projects that fueled my creativity. The most important change, though, was internal. I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for healthy relationships. I learned that helping others shouldn't come at the expense of my own well-being. And I learned that sometimes, being called selfish by people taking advantage of you is actually a sign you're doing something right. Family remains complicated. Jessica and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship, with clear boundaries and expectations on both sides. My parents and I are closer in some ways. Our connection more authentic now that we can speak difficult truths to each other. Extended family members who called me cruel have largely come around, especially after learning more details about the situation. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't taken that drastic action, changing the locks, packing up their belongings, cutting off communication. Would Jessica and Mark still be living with me, taking advantage of my generosity while plotting behind my back? Would my parents still be enabling their behavior while taking my reliability for granted? Would I still be that doormat, that ATM, that convenient solution to everyone else's problems? I'll never know for sure, but I suspect the answer is yes. Sometimes it takes a dramatic gesture to break unhealthy patterns that have become comfortable for everyone except you. As I sit here on my deck, watching the sunset with Duke purring beside me and Alicia on her way over for dinner, I feel a profound sense of peace. The journey hasn't been easy, but it's been necessary. Standing up for myself didn't tear my family apart as some claimed it would. Instead, it created the possibility for something healthier to grow from the ashes of what wasn't working. If you're in a situation where people are taking advantage of your generosity, dismissing your feelings, or violating your boundaries, remember, setting limits isn't selfish. It's an act of self-respect. And anyone who tries to make you feel guilty for having boundaries is telling you exactly why you need them in the first place. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Thank you for listening. And remember, you deserve relationships that lift you up, not drain you dry.